All right, so now we are on to the Hunter tier list. This is the Hunter tier list for 2024. We have 3 new hunters on this list and a lot of changes. 3 new hunters are Night Watcher, I think it's just Night Watch actually, Opera Singer, and Fool's Gold. And I think most of these are in alphabetical order, so we'll just go at it one at a time. All right, Axe Boy, A tier, easy A tier. I think he's got a lot of really strong abilities. Like his full presence is actually quite good. He has a lot of stuff to work with. I think Axe Boy, like A plus at the very least. He's able to double hit people with his fireballs, although they can be a little bit easy to avoid. If you're good with like just knowing where they are at all times. The trees can be taken down pretty early. He's a little wonky for me to play because I don't really know his timings very well. But I think that all in all, he's pretty decent. The souls can help you determine where survivors are. So like for a lot of hunters that have problems figuring out where the survivors are in the first place, or like looking for a survivor, if they get a soul attached to them, it's actually really easy for them to help find people. He's also got a speed boost that works in a straight line, but it's still really, really quick, and it can go quite far too. So he can zoom on and around when he's got that the corrupted ground. Bloody Queen, she's the Tie Queen. They've never changed Bloody Mary. I think she's perfectly balanced as all things are. I complained a lot about her abilities being a little too overpowered, but because of how she can just walk through walls. But in reality, if you just do everything properly against a Bloody Queen and you dodge, what is the rule, like 2 mirrors, you can automatically force a tie. If you miss a 3rd mirror, it's kind of a loss for her. That's like a cipher complete. I think that Bloody Queen she's fully built as a hunter right at the start of the game. The only thing that she gets at her first presence is the mirror turn thing, and then the having another survivor reflected in front of you. It helps a little bit with the positioning, but a good Bloody Queen doesn't really need that. Like her full presence hardly does anything for her. And I think that she has a lot of really good situations, but she's also weak in a lot of areas, like the 2-story areas where you have to walk upstairs. So I think that she is able to get ties really easily because of how good she is at doing what she does. But I also think that she has a couple of shortcomings that prevent her from getting into S tier. Clerk. I'm a Clerk main. Is it fair for me to put her in S tier? I don't know. I personally think Clerk is quite strong. She's weak against certain people, but I think in general she is quite strong. For her ability to lock down ciphers and her ability to prevent a kite from being looped too many times. You have to be really high skilled to work with the Clerk though, so I don't recommend her for new people, but if you are good with her, she is so strong at locking, like controlling a map with her macro. You have to be constantly on the ball with any hunter, but with her especially, you have to know the maps extremely well. And there are some survivors that she's really good against, but there's like an acrobat who doesn't have to leap through the window, or an antiquarian that can just beat her up, or a batter that can hit her away from long range, where you don't have to interact with stuff. I feel like Clerk is a little bit weaker. So I put her in S tier because she's so good at what she does. Not necessarily at like in every single situation she's good. Lena, thank you so much. Welcome in. And Indy, thank you for the follow. Welcome in. So yeah, I think Clerk is going to be S tier for me because she's so good at chasing down, in general, survivors that don't have a lot of escaping or kiting abilities. Any B tier survivor is just instantly dead to her. Like painter, doctor, lawyer. Like she's not really as good as catching a lawyer because lawyer's just kind of too quick. But like if you don't have something to get her away from you very, very often, then she's just gonna catch up to you eventually. And I kind of view as a tie hunter as well. I honestly don't think End is that strong. Like, I think she's a great hunter. She's very easy to play and she's fun. But in terms of her strength, a lot of survivors at high tier know how to avoid the cats to prevent the double hit for her rescue. Her cats can be flywheeled. I didn't know this before, but I took down Naiad a full tier after I figured out that flywheel could prevent that. And now I figured out that the cat's stun itself can be flywheeled, or the cat's silence. I think that puts her pretty far down the list, actually. Like, she's basically a single hit hunter with one chasing ability that's kind of easy to dodge. I don't think it's that hard to dodge the cats. I just think that in certain situations, she's just too weak. Clerk has certain survivors that she's weak against, but Anne has a lot more of those situations. I know a lot of people say Prospector counters her because he does, but also Batter's pretty good against her. Survivors that can just run away, like Cheerleader, are just faster than her, can turn corners faster than her. She's a lot weaker in certain areas that Clerk normally wouldn't have trouble chasing people in. How do you flywheel Naiad? You can flywheel her water. When it gets to 99 to 100%, you hit the flywheel button and it actually resets your water to 0 and prevents the damage on you. At the really high tiers, a lot of survivors are so annoying with that. I had no idea. Yeah, it's really overpowered. Dream Witch, I'm going to knock her down a tier. A lot of people think Dream Witch is S tier because of how hard how much macro she can have. But recently, like after playing Dream Witch myself, I just realized that she's not that great of a hunter. When you're a Dream Witch, you have to constantly switch between the perspectives, and a lot of people get lost or dizzy at the thought of having to switch between 6 different perspectives. Not only that, but the perspectives themselves don't really help you. Like when the leeches are chasing people, survivors will do everything that they can to mind game the hunter from a distance. Like if you're just close enough to the leech, they won't go back to the survivor and they'll just completely deleech. The leeches themselves don't have any chasing abilities rather than like your hunter trait, like a blink or a patroller. So you kind of rely on sandwiches to try and catch survivors out, but it doesn't always work out in your favor. And things like seer owls, a doctor, a psychologist, a barmaid, they can, if they force a leech hit on you, you're down a leech and you're not going to get her. Like it's just so unfortunate that she has a lot of counters nowadays. And also if she was just like better at hunting, or like if she had more than just the sandwich going for her, I think she would be a lot stronger. I think she relies too much on catching people off guard nowadays rather than being like a great macro hunter in general. Mobile has a difference for Dream Witch. Yeah, I think she's a little bit easier to play on mobile, but I don't think that justifies like how difficult she still is to micromanage each individual leech as well as her ability to get around. Like I think she has okay cipher pressure, but if you just leave a leech at the cipher, that's fine. But then you have to chase, like say there's 3 survivors out, right? And you have 2 leeches out. You can leave a leech at the cipher, but if the survivor just walks far away enough or de-leeches, which they probably have a mark by then, or they can just work on another cipher, then like that leech is essentially useless. It does put a little bit of pressure on them, but most of the time I find myself needing to be on the 2 leeches or the main body that's chasing the target rather than using a leech to camp out the cipher. That if you are using them to chase, like if you're using 2 leeches to chase and you have one camping the cipher, having to switch back to that cipher leech kind of messes up your chase and can reset it completely back to 0 after all that time you spent trying to sandwich one of them. So I just think that her payoff isn't good enough anymore. Feaster. Feaster's kind of bad. Unfortunately, Feaster's just not that great of a hunter. His tentacles are really, really predictable. He's good in certain spots, but like a good survivor that knows where to go against a Feaster at is going to do really well against him. You can grab onto the Feaster tentacles and it'll still, the tentacles won't be able to attack you and his ability can still go on cooldown. Like his ability is to make a certain tentacle swing. It's not necessarily that the tentacle swings. So like, I don't know why they separated those 2 things, but there is a nuance to it where if you use the ability and it goes on cooldown, then you can't swing again for like 5 seconds, but that tentacle is still there. So I think that's really sad. There's a lot of quality of life issues with Feaster. For example, he's one of the few hunters where if you're trying to use an ability, it slows you down. If you're trying to place a tentacle, it slows you down for some reason. I don't know why it does that, but I really don't like that. Literally every other hunter doesn't have this issue. I can hold up my clerk scripts for as long as I'd like, and I'd be going at the same pace to walking up to them. But Feaster will slow down if he's trying to tentacle you, and I think that's really stupid. The tentacles are kind of easy to dodge too. Like you can loop around it, you can grab it. You can do a lot of things to these tentacles to avoid them. There are certain spaces where you can make them unavoidable, but the really high tier survivors are able to get around those. Not to mention, you don't even get tentacles unless you're chasing someone. Until you get your first presence, you don't actually generate tentacles. Like he can find people out with his tentacles, but like his biggest problem is chasing people, in my opinion. I don't think he's that great at chasing. He just has too many issues. His hitbox is great, but it's again, he's having a really good hitbox. It doesn't do a lot of him, but it makes you predictable. For example, a lot of people just take flywheel. You can flywheel the tentacle. You can flywheel his attack because it's really obvious. Yeah, even at full presence, you can still dodge the tentacles. There's no cooldown on his full presence ability, but I often find myself just running out of tentacles towards the end of the game. If you put them on a chair, they actually go away quicker than normal too. So you can't, like, if you are going to use your tentacles to camp, you have to have a few of them. Yeah, Feaster is kind of rare in upper ranks too, because he's just so difficult to play. The tentacle placement itself is also really wonky. It might be easier to do on mobile, but at the very least on PC, the placement of the tentacles is really, really hard. Especially while you're moving, the sensitivity of how far it goes is just, it's wonky at times. I don't really like it. Gamekeeper, I would actually put in B tier. Maybe A tier. I think they just buffed Gamekeeper recently. Like, his anti-loop is pretty great. The little traps that you can do putting it on windows, it can cut off a window completely, guaranteeing you a hit. So, like, if your plan was to cut him in one corner of the map, a lot of the times the survivors don't know what hunter it is right at the start. So if they get cornered, in one way or the other, and then he starts putting traps down, he can almost guarantee a hit on survivors. The hook is pretty generous too. And even if you miss the hook, he pulls himself in, gets really close to you, and when he slams into the wall, he slows you down. His hooks also have the ability to terror shock, which is really great. I would say Gamekeeper is probably A tier, if maybe A minus, because like I think he does become a little predictable to dodge. If you're really good at Gamekeeper and you're really good at mind gaming, I suppose you could do a little bit better. I definitely think at the very least A tier. You don't really see too many Gamekeepers too. It's unfortunate, but I do think he is a pretty decent hunter. Bonbon, I'm gonna put in like A plus to S tier. So I'm probably gonna reserve S tier for certain hunters that can check all the boxes. So like, although Clerk can, like, it does have weaknesses, she checks the box. Like my three big things, like, are you good at chasing? Do you have map pressure? And I guess those are the two big things. Clerk can do both of those things really well, and she has a really strong end game. Bonbon is amazing at the art of the camp. Oh, I guess that's my third thing, camping. Clerk is okay at camping because she has incredibly fast hit recoil. It's not great, but her chase and her lockdown is just so good that she doesn't have to be that amazing at it. For Bonbon though, he's able to catch people pretty easily, in my opinion, if you're good with the bombs. But also, he's very, very good at camping. Like, he's so good at camping, I'm giving him A plus tier. Like, I've scuffed so many rescuers trying to come in, like, no matter who it is. I think the most problem I have is, like, sometimes journalist is problematic if she's already too close. And then, like, first officer sometimes, maybe. But if you're not one of those hardcore rescuers, you're going to have a lot of trouble trying to rescue from Bonbon. If you come in too late, it puts so much pressure on the survivors. I often get terror shocks just throwing a bomb down and then just attacking them. He can also bait with his bomb, and his time bomb is pretty much a guaranteed chip damage hit. So I think that Bonbon is really, really strong. That being said, he's not in S tier because he doesn't have any maps control. He has to leave the chair pretty far to be able to harass ciphers unless the chair's right next to a cipher. You have to be lucky in that regard, and a lot of the time survivors will kite away from the ciphers that are being worked on. So like Bonbon can't just lock down a cipher from across the map like a Clerk can, or like even like a Bloody Queen can. She can harass another cipher. Bonbon just can't do that. And I think like because his range is so weak, that is a pretty big detriment to being cipher rushed. People will often just sell the first survivor for me and then like cipher rush me, and that's it. Like, even if I catch someone super early, they can still force a tie by not rescuing that first person, no matter how early my catch was. Because it's not like you can just leave the chair when you're exceptional at camping and your chase is okay. Like, it's good. Your chase is good, but you have to like be in the middle of the chase to be able to use your abilities. It'll just be like you pushing someone off a cipher for maybe 10 seconds, and then like that'll give another survivor plenty of time to sneak up behind you to get that rescue off, or just to decode another cipher, and they can just come back to that one later. I don't know. Selling your first survivor is like a really good tactic just to force a draw if you need it. Next is Geisha. I used to knock Geisha for being like really annoying to play because her hitbox is atrocious. But recently I've been kind of seeing the light with her, especially in the upper rank. I think she has her place in the upper ranks. And the reason for that is because she can start a chase right away. And what I mean by that is if you're Manticore or above, you get to select the area that you start in, right? So a lot of survivors will know, even if you're not that ranked, like their spawn locations. If you're a higher tier survivor, you'll know exactly where the hunter spawns and where they're going to come from based on the trajectory that they walk to get to you. And so most survivors just walk away right at the start. Where Geisha comes into play though is that she's one of the hunters that just goes right at the start. Like her Breaking Wheel and Opera Singer, like I know where you spawn and I can just be on top of you in like 2 seconds. So her chase starts instantly because her dash is just so fast. And then like she just kind of goes. So her only issue is that like her hitbox is really, really bad. And also her chasing is like sort of mediocre. It's not like it's good. I've seen really, really good geishas, but even then I've seen them get looped around more often than not. She's really easily to get pallet stun. She's really easy to like confuse or to mind game past a pallet, and pretty easy to tight kite as well around certain areas. But just the fact that she's able to start that chase right away is like really good. She doesn't have much cipher pressure at all either, but I say that, but she can move back and forth really quickly, which is why I'm like maybe giving her like a 5 out of 10 on that one. At least she gets some points. It's not like Bon Bon where she literally cannot leave, or maybe he just throws a time bomb on the closest one. But a lot of the times, right when you get tinnitus, you got to be on that chair, or you got to set up peepers around to figure out where they're coming from. In that sense, like Wanted Order does help a little bit if you are going to run that on Bon Bon, but like for Geisha, she just kind of has to keep going or like be aggressive as possible. I've seen people like just chair someone out as Geisha and then immediately teleport to another cipher and start chasing them. Maybe try to get a hit on them and then like dash back to the chair to camp it out. So like best case scenario, you get a bonus hit, right? That's great for her. There are some really cool tricks you can do as Geisha, like going through walls if you look at your camera the right way. I've never figured out how to do that, but there are ways to do it. So like I think she's good, but she's not crazy amazing. She's a single hit hunter that has a long hit recoil. Like I don't even think Mary's is that long. I will give her that she's fast though. Like sometimes that's all you need to catch a survivor, and she's good at that. So she does have a lot of aggression. Hellenberg, I don't think Hellenberg's that great, but I don't think he's as bad as Feaster. If he takes chase in his Ember ability, I think his camping is actually pretty insane. If you have a puppet, an Ember, and Leo all in the same place, that's 3 hits. He can camp someone out really quickly. His biggest issue though is actually being able to catch them. Leo is kind of slow. He vaults windows pretty fast, ironically, but like he's very, very slow trying to catch people. He doesn't have a lot of things that can help him loop too many times aside from the Ember. But the Ember has to build up. He's not a hunter that can just start with it. So by the time he even has his Ember out in the first place, he's probably already gotten Cypher rushed. Hellenberg is good late game, like mid to late. He's so incredibly powerful mid to late if he ever gets there. The biggest issue is like him actually trying to get there. His hitbox is also kind of wonky. Like his long hit is so weird. I don't know why his animations are like that. If they made his early game a little bit better, he would be super duper strong. Because like the 60 seconds, the first 60 seconds for hunters are some of the most important parts for hunting. And his first 60 seconds are just god awful. Compared to most hunters, like at least some hunters have something to work with, like not Feaster because he's in C tier, but Anne has her cats, like Bloody Queen has her mirrors, X-Boy has his flames, Bomba has his bombs, Clerk has her scripts. But Hellenberg has nothing. Like he has actually nothing to work with. It's so sad. I don't know why he's the beginner hunter, because he is not a beginner hunter. He's actually really annoying, complicated to play as well. Hermit? I actually don't know really where to play him. He's more of a solo queue hunter because I put him like B plus, but maybe A minus. The biggest issue with Hermit is if survivors are in communication with each other. I don't think he's playing in IVL too often because if the survivors are just well coordinated, it's so hard to play against them. Like you need to tag them twice at the start of the game, and a lot of survivors just won't touch a charged cipher. There are different ways to play Hermit. I am privy to one, but not the other. Like I know what to do for the other one. Usually you just kind of like want to chase first and then connect the ciphers after. Some hermits do that, but not me. I connect all of them right off the start, and then I just constantly switch targets until I get one down. Because a lot of the times they'll cut into each other and making it really easy for me to tag one and then stun the other. So I think hermit is like really good against certain in solo queue when they're not coordinated. But like they'll be at 99% health. Everyone will be on the right color. If there's a doctor in the game, if they're really good at telling each other where hermit is, he kind of suffers a little bit. I like to take confined spaces on him, but I think actually insolence might be better. I think hermit has a lot of issues against tall walls, so areas that are normally strong against most hunters are especially strong against him, and I think that's where I had the biggest issues with him. Like the tall walls in the ruins of Arms Factory, or like the second floor of a hospital, or like the ruins, they're just tall enough so that he can't shoot over them. And it's kind of unfortunate because like the strong parts are just stronger against him. It's not like Anne who can just throw her things through walls, or Mary who can just mirror through it either. Hermit's like not that complicated as a hunter though, and he's really good against anti-stun. I would just say in competitive play, in ranked play, he's pretty good. I would put him in A minus, but in like high tournament play, I would say he's not that great. Joker low-key I think is A tier. I don't know what it is about Jokers because I don't really see a lot of them. You know what's weird? Joker players are probably the most toxic types of hunters. But I think that Joker is actually kind of nuts. He's like a better breaking wheel nowadays. Like breaking wheel kind of sucks now, but Joker can be across the map relatively quickly. His anti-healing is really strong to be honest. And the infinite dash is also really strong. Like he's breaking wheel without the downsides of having to be breaking wheel. Like his dash actually does damage, and although he is kind of thwarted by pallets, he breaks pallets so fast that I don't think it matters too much in the first place. I think that he's able to pressure ciphers really quick because like imagine a geisha just constantly dashing. That's what it's like for him. And he can scuff rescues pretty easily if he catches someone with wanted order trying to do the rescue. He can double hit people. He's got a lot of like different uses, but he's not like the ultimate hunter. Like I think he's just under S tier. I think if you do enough stuff to annoy a clown, like a really really good clown is just impossible to deal with. He'll juke you out every day of the week. But it's really hard to get to that point. And if you fall for the mind game yourself, even like one or two times, I feel like Joker is just kited a little too easily. But he's not bad at all. Lucino, A tier. This is kind of a big change. It's kind of a recent change as well. You know that double jump thing? I think the double jump has propelled him into A tier. I think I used to put him in C tier, but not anymore. Like, Feaster really needs a rework. The infinite jump just helps you get to places really, really fast. And I think that's what he really needed. That he had a lot of issues, just only being able to jump twice was kind of eh. But now that he's able to jump as many times as he wants, as long as he has the energy for it, I feel like his cipher pressure is just that much greater. He can scuff a lot of rescuers, or a lot easier if they're on the corner of the map. Like he has a double hit ability. He has like moderate cipher pressure now. His chasing is okay. I honestly don't think his chase is that great. Like A minus. Like there's so many hunters that fit into A minus B plus tier. Like I just don't know whether to put them in A minus or B plus. Chad Eyes. I don't really know where Mad Eyes goes. I played him myself for the first time yesterday. I hated it. Hated every moment of it. I don't think Mad Eyes is that great of a hunter. Like, I think that Mad Eyes is like really potentially good. You know what? I think he's potentially really good, but against a coordinated team of survivors, like he's not that great. Like you can have people shut off his thing, and he relies on his ability in teleporting a lot. Against like the really, really high survivor tiers, I think he has a lot of issues being able to hit them if they're good at turning. Like survivor teams will just gang up on his machines and just turn them all off. His chase is so bad. I don't know why, but he feels so weird to auto attack with. I don't like it at all. His walls just I feel like by the time he has enough energy to spam the walls like he needs to, a lot of the ciphers are already starting to be completed. And I don't think he has enough presence for each of them. Plus, a lot of the survivors, like before you start a cipher, he'll just get on the machine and then just use up all the energy for it so that you don't have anything left. That's a pretty strong strategy against him, and it makes him kind of weak until late game. And plus, like even if you do wall people off, it's not a surefire like I caught this guy, because people could still vault it by taking a chip damage. So if you are trying to cut off the gates at the end of the game, he stalls it off forever. But I think that he still needs to be dealt with one way or the other. In that, if you're taking teleport to get the people quicker, it still takes forever. Like, he could stall out a game for as long as he likes without detention even. But I just think that, yeah, he just has too many issues trying to catch people in the first place, that even if you do stall it out, you're still not able to close it out for yourself, you know? So I just feel like you gotta have that monk mental if you want to play him. Metas requires high execution to win a 4K. Yeah, he just requires, like, I think too much work. It's not worth it. It just isn't for some hunters. Like, Mad Eyes, I feel like it's too much work for not a lot of payoff. Dream Wish is a lot of work, but you do get some payoff out of it. It's better just to play a lot simpler hunters. Nide is like B tier. Honestly, I don't think Nide is that great of a character. Like, survivors that know how to transition are just really good against her. It depends on the spots that you're transitioning out of, but like ever since I figured out that you could like flywheel her water at 99% to 100, you can actually reset your water to 0 and like just stay in the water for a little bit longer and avoid the damage. So the flywheel is just too strong against a lot of these hunters. Like, when flywheel came out, a lot of them just got rearranged so fast. But Naiad, like, she has okay chasing ability. She's just a little too predictable, a little, that's it. She's too predictable. Her ability to cut off areas and her ability to like lock down ciphers is limited to her range from them. And she can get around the map pretty quickly when she has first presence. But I just think that like her chasing ability and her actual damage dealing ability, it takes too much time. The amount of time it takes for water to build up it just feels too long to me for it to be useful at all. Because survivors will either one, block it with something, or two, just get out of the water before that happens. And so you have to constantly try to water people down. Or you can try to chase them down with your spear. And like at that point you're just raw kiting and then trying to flush people out. By the time you do that, you're spending so much time creating that closed loop, trying to get the survivors to take the waterlog damage, that you've wasted. A different hunter would have probably just used their ability to down them by then. Naya, when she has to chase for first officer for 2 minutes because she can't tell when he's going to transition. Yeah, Naya is just like, she has too many issues. I feel like a lot of low tier survivors fear her for, low tier survivors kind of fear everybody. But Naya in particular, because they don't understand like, oh, I got to get out of the water. I got to transition to the next area on the map. B, if anything, like middle of B, because like she can catch people. It's just like, at the very most, you're probably getting a draw with her. I watched her get played in some of the pro matches, and my goodness, she suffered. She suffered so hard. I felt so bad for the guys who were playing her heart out and like going back and forth trying to down people. People kept transitioning out of her water at 99%, and it was like, okay, well, you're at 99% now, but unless you get that 1% by throwing the spear on her, like you're not going to get that damage off. So a lot of survivors are just really good about getting in and out of that water as soon as they can. At the upper tiers. Nightmare, actually C tier. Like, I think Nightmare is not the worst hunter, actually. Well, hold on, let me check. Who do I have left? Yeah, I don't, okay, maybe he is pretty bad. I think Nightmare is actually the worst hunter in the game. Like, worse than Hellember, worse than Feaster. His ability takes way too long to charge at the start, and he's kind of has nothing else except this like little dash ability. Survivors that have a lot of counters for him are just not going to fall for it. Like, Cheerleader can just outrun him. Literally, like, if we take a look back at my survivor list, like all these survivors can just outrun him or harass him or punch him away or something. And he can't really do anything about it because the only thing he can do is dash at you. He's not like Anne who could stun you, or Bonbon who can hit you from range, or Clerk who can just throw pallets down in your face. Like, he's not like any of these hunters who can do something about you, like to slow you down or prevent you from kiting. He can only dash at you. Like, hunters that can only advance their own ability rather than preventing you from doing yours is, in my opinion, kind of weaker than normal. So at endgame, he's okay at best. He can teleport with his crow, but even if you do teleport, until he gets to his final presence and he's able to like dash instantly twice, he's just so incredibly weak. I don't think it's worth playing him. But yeah, that Nightmare is probably the worst hunter in the game, unfortunately. Maybe they need to like just make it charge a little bit faster or just splash something else into him. I feel like he's just the most basic hunter too. His thing is that he dashes and then he has one teleport. I just feel like it's not that great. Joseph, kind of interesting as a character. I feel like if you play Joseph really, really well, if you do him correctly, he's able to get draws pretty reliably just by downing people in the mirror world. If you're like survivors, even if you're careful, a Joseph that knows spawn locations and gets a lucky camera, if he can pop that right off the bat, he'll be like, okay, well, I know where the survivors are now, or at least he'll check certain locations where he thinks the survivors will be. And so I think he's able to get ties if he's really good at knowing locations and then planning out how he's going to prevent cypher rushes. If you are planning on being a Joseph main, I would suggest like banning prisoner, probably, maybe banning doctor, rather than some of the survivors you have to chase. Like he just plays so differently from any other hunter. I don't think that I have good qualifications for making a judgment on him because he's just so different. But like his chasing ability is pretty mediocre. I've kited Josephs before forever, and they aren't that amazing. Like he does vault windows pretty fast, breaks pallets incredibly fast. He has incredibly fast hit recovery. It's just catching people. It's so problematic because like once again, just like Nightmare, he doesn't have anything to slow down the survivors. He only has stuff to advance his own abilities until he gets to full presence, that is. But like, you know, you still got to get there. And the for most of these hunters, for every single one except for maybe Joseph and maybe Dreamwitch and Clerk, the first 60 seconds of your match pretty much determines whether you win or lose, or whether you're going to get a draw or not. Breaking Wheel, oof. It hurts my heart to put him in B-, but ever since Flywheel came in, Breaking Wheel is just not a good hunter anymore. You can Flywheel that, his full presence ability, you can Flywheel the spike. He's really bad in areas you can get permanently looped in. You kind of have to take confined spaces on him. Confined spaces insolence, so most wheels aren't trump detention. Like, in theory, if he rolls you over twice, he's in a really good spot. But even then, you can still get Cypher Rush. Like, you can get off the... If you change into wheel form and you chase after another survivor, a different survivor is just going to get the rescue behind your back. So it's not like he has a really great cipher pressure. Although he can do it, typically you risk losing both survivors if you're not careful. And I think that Breaking Wheel, like against Flywheel, dude, it just isn't going to work. Most survivors who look back at him, you can loop him infinitely just out in the open if he's never getting out of wheel form. You're pretty much playing a mind game. Like when you're chasing a survivor, you're taking a 33% chance that you're going to hit them. Basically, like, are they going to go straight? Are they going to turn right? Or are they going to turn left? And if you guess wrong more than like 3 or 4 times, the chase just becomes infinitely longer because the survivors start getting their abilities. Like the acrobats will start using their bombs, the patients will start hooking away. And then after you get the spikes, you still have to chase them out. Like you do have the trap to get them, but the trap isn't perfect. Most survivors can just avoid it by kiting in a different direction. And Wheel in its base form is not that quick. So I just think that like Wheel has a lot of issues that, or like just he got destroyed by Flywheel. That's it. He may never recover. But we'll see. I mean, he still played kind of off from time to time. And I do think he has his use cases against certain people. Like, he can go right through Priestess Portal, so he's pretty decent against her. I think he does have... He's still played once in a while in, like, in tournament play. So I think he's not the worst, but he doesn't feel good to play against high tiers. Playing as Wheel is kind of difficult, too. Like, you got to get used to the controls. Jack... B tier. I think Jack has like too many counters. Like I've been seeing him a lot more often than not, especially with a lot of these B tier hunters. It's because the survivors aren't playing correctly that the hunters get a huge advantage rather than the hunters themselves being good at hunting. For example, if you dodge his Windblade and you dodge it twice, you've won the game. But if you don't dodge it once, you might have lost the game. So it's really not hard to dodge though, because you can walk into his basic attack and then get the hit recoil and the speed boost without having to eat the blade, because he can't double hit you like in one hit pretty much. So I think Jack is pretty decent. It's just getting him to first presence is so hard. You need the invisibleness to to be able to catch up to survivors. And even then, like if they throw down a pallet and you have to break it, it's one of those like impassable areas like the middle of Arms Factory or the inside of Arms Factory, then you just can't get past those areas. And you have to break it. It takes you out of your tier 1 presence. It's just, it doesn't feel great to play until you get full presence on him. But when he's zooming, he's really zooming and he's very fun. Yeah, the Foggy is strong, but I feel like it's too easily dodged. Like, it's not like a Bonbon where I have more control over how often it can come out and where it goes. The Foggy is very slow and you only get one shot every 8 seconds. So, or I think it's longer than that. Like, I think it's like 13 to 16 seconds or something like that. But it's long enough to be not very strong, or like it's long enough to be balanced, I should say. Next up, Galatea. I think Galatea is S tier. I think she has a lot of potential, but like the Galateas that I think are S tier need to know her really, really well. Like, I'm judging her based on her potential, not necessarily how most people play her. Because if you're really good with these statues and you get the full presence, she is so hard to kite and also incredibly hard to rescue from. A lot of the survivor, like Bonbon Bombs can't push you off a rescue, but her statues can actually push you off. They can push you off of certain areas too. They can block off areas just as well as Bonbon can. She's like Bonbon, but slightly slower, but I think she has a lot more utility. Like, her chisel gives her the edge that I think pushes her into S tier that Bonbon doesn't have. Whereas Bonbon has to lob him out, like within this field of view. She can use her chisel to chisel all the way across the map and put on that cipher pressure, preventing survivors from decoding. And she can actually harass them from there, from the chair too. So in addition to her camping, her harassment's like really, really good. Her chase is decent, just as good as Bonbon's, I should say. All in all, a good hunter. Like, if you got to really know how to land those statues though, because there is a slightly longer delay on hers compared to Bonbon's, but if you do figure out the timing for it, you can get like a really good pacing with her. She's why I'm afraid of rescuing. Yeah, rescuing from Bonbon is scary, but rescuing from Galatea is like doubly scary because like if she pushes you in the wrong way or the other, or if you're not careful enough, she's just gonna knock you off. Her attack animation is not obvious as well. Like, I can't tell when she's attacking sometimes because she throws the chisel at you and it goes back to her rather than Bonbon, who like prepares a swing. Next hunter, Violetta. I don't think Violetta is that great. Honestly, like Violetta is so, for one, she's really low to the ground, so she's hard to, in my opinion, she's hard to play. Her hitbox is really bad. So I think Violetta is like very, very difficult to play. If you pallet stun her, like it's one of those annoying things where your camera just gets all freaky. Like, her web spit, pretty easily dodged. Like, it's almost as easy to dodge as the wind blade from Jack. And it only does pointed chip damage. It does put web on them, but like sometimes survivors just eat up that web if they can. And then like, she doesn't get the web back fast enough for her to be strong, I think. I think that's her issue. And like, she's quick when she is near obstacles, but she's not really quick out in the open. Where like, the placement of her webs needs to be in certain locations, and this might just be a PC thing. I'm not sure because I never played her on mobile, but it's sometimes the webs just don't work on PC. Like, between two trees where you normally think they would work, they just don't, and I don't know why. So like, she can be a little frustrating to play. Not to mention like her extra ability, which is to chair people off of chairs. I think it's good against certain harassers, but like, you waste so much web for it. If they buff that ability, I might consider bumping her up to A tier a little bit, especially for people who are like main Violetta. But I just think that she's not that amazing. Or if I do put her, she's not B minus, or say she's like a solid B. I'll tell you one thing she's better than before. Years where you were wasting on time on those webs. Yeah. Undead, B tier. Like, I don't think Undead's good. In fact, like, I don't even think it's B tier. I think it's C tier. Not as bad as Nightmare. But not being able to cheer people, it's cool, but it has its downsides too. Like, not being able to cheer them means that survivors can just rescue them whenever, and they can be down on the ground for a while before they get to like, quote unquote, second chair. And so I think that like, he's really, really weak to tight kiting. Like, an entomologist on her thing can just constantly go around the same rock over and over again. He has certain spots where he's good at, but I just don't think that Undead is that great of a hunter. The only thing that catches me off guard sometimes is his jump, because I never know if he can make a jump over something or not. It's kind of confusing, but eventually you do get used to it. Like, he can move the dungeon too. I'm glad they did buff him a little bit. I don't think the buff that he got was what he needed. It was pretty much like the crawling speed of survivors is drastically reduced from what it used to be. Because when he used to down you and you had flywheel, so you had sticker, the sticker plus the undead thing, it just made you zoom across the map even while you were down. Like, you were faster than you were running, I think. Or you're almost as fast as you were like regular running speed. So I thought that was a little crazy. Now you're like just slightly slower than that. So I think that that was a pretty good change for him. Other than that, like, his chasing ability is kind of eh. He has to go in a straight line, and he has to go really, really far too. He just kind of noobs past you sometimes if he misses. And if you do miss with his ability, yeah, he has got 5 charges of it, but it's you gotta wait. Like, sometimes you just gotta wait for that ability to come up, and if it's not up, then you don't have anything to chase with. Plus, it can be blocked in certain situations too. Like, Melly's bees can actually block that attack. Another really big downside to Undead is that his dash attacks don't apply detention damage. So, like, a Bloody Queen's Mirror will apply detention damage to instantly down people. If you hit someone with Undead and you use your dash ability, they can still get running. So you're pretty much limited to hunting regularly that entire time you have detention. And if you have detention and you down someone who's been down before, they can still crawl out the door. Like, you can't chair them. Sometimes survivors just force the door open and crawl out after you down them. Like, it's not a big deal for them because they can just leave. So I just don't think Undead's that great. Violinist. There's a lot of Antonio mids in my chat, but I'm so sorry. You know what? To make you guys feel better, I'll move Nightmare down to D tier. I think that Violinist is like, his abilities are too easy to dodge. I just don't think Violinist is great. Like, his chasing is meh. His Cypher Pressure, non-existent. His camping, it's okay. Like, his camping is okay, but like, whose isn't when you have a double hit ability, right? At the very least, Feaster's camping ability is pretty decent, but Violinist needs to hit that string really, really precisely for it to do damage. And a lot of survivors can just juke you out. So, especially if you try to make it too long, there's a way to do it. Like, the way you're supposed to put the string is one further away and then one closer to you. That way the travel time between the notes isn't as obvious. And so, like, a lot of survivors will try to juke past him back and forth to avoid that hit. I don't think it's that hard to dodge. I've dodged a lot of Antonius for it too. And if he tries to do it through a window, like if he tries to get you through a pallet or a window, you can just not take the pallet or window and then like flywheel their hit or whatever. But they do have to throw one. Like, for him especially, it's bad because when he throws the first ability out, you know that he has to throw a second one out soon, or it's gonna go on cooldown without having to do anything. So it's predictive, right? Like, it's not like Jack, who's his hit ability kind of is on demand. You have to put one out and then the other. And so Violinist is kind of meh. So yeah, Violinist though, C tier. When he gets his crescendo, he's okay. But even then, like, you can just miss with your crescendo willy-nilly and it would be bad. So I just don't think Violinist is that good. Wax Artist, I think, is probably the best hunter. No, probably the second best, because there's a new one we haven't gotten to yet, but at the very least, I think Wax Artist is S tier. He has the whole package. His chase, really, really good. Like, he's just got so much wax to work with. He used to have infinite wax, but he got nerfed so that he has less of it. Still a ton. He has more than enough than he needs. But he can completely cut off ciphers with that ability. He can do it from pretty far away. A bonbon can cut off a cipher with this bomb, but he has to keep throwing it. But a Wax Artist can just glub it with his first presence ability, and it will be locked down for then 15 or 10, around 10 seconds, I think. His hot wax at full presence lets him double hit a survivor to prevent rescues. Is really, really good for detention, because if you just use your regular wax ability, you don't even need the hot wax to down them, but it'll let you freeze them in place just so you can get that detention hit off. Yeah, he just, like, his ability to lock down the cipher is actually just so strong, because if he's anywhere near that prime cipher and you have someone chaired there, like, good luck trying to win this one, because he's going to keep that cipher locked down for forever. And if you're not really careful with how you're doing the rescue, he can also double hit you. So he can double hit you and that Cypher's locked down. Like it's kind of doomed. You have to kite really far away to get him to not be able to utilize his abilities to the fullest. Wu Chang. I would say he's kind of in the same camp as like Breaking Wheel. Well, not as Breaking Wheel, like probably who's he in the same camp with? Probably Hellenberg. Wu Chang is okay, but like he's so useless without his first presence ability. The only thing that makes Wu Chang good is his bell. The umbrella throw is okay to catch people off guard, but a lot of the times, especially at high tiers, you'll notice this too, especially with like if you've ever been a hermit main in high tier, you'll notice that people don't touch ciphers right off the bat. They usually walk around in a couple circles first until they figure out who the hunter is. Because if it's a Wuchang or like a Joseph or a Dream Witch, sometimes they have to move on the bat. A lot of survivors have abilities just to get away right off the bat too, though. Like a cheerleader probably has her pom poms ready. Like a prospector can just throw a couple magnets at you. Prisoner has got a shock. But at least you can get those abilities out if you do get a good umbrella down. I don't think that Wuchang is that great in a lot of regards. His white form, it has a good hitbox, but in every other regard, I don't think he's that great. His Soul Siphon ability is good only for catching up to people. It's so hard to get that Soul Siphon to work because you can actually flywheel the Soul Siphon, for one, if you need to flywheel it, but two, you can get stunned out of it pretty easily. Like at 99%, Enchantress just taps you for one and you don't get the Soul Siphon off. It's so sad. And even then, like the Soul Siphon doesn't prevent them from walking. It just stops them from dropping pallets. Like it'll guarantee you a hit, but they can still walk around and they can't rescue. But yeah, I think it could be a little bit stronger. Like you might as well just have it be like a full stun or a point of damage or something. I don't know. The bell on Black Wuchang is really nice, and he's got really fast hit recovery. So, I mean, I like playing Wuchang against the lower tiers because they're not as aware. But him at high tiers, you're never gonna get full presence unless you take insolence. And I mean, the insolence does work out because like Breaking Wheel, I take insolence as well. Sometimes I really just prefer confined spaces. For real, I mean Wuchang, and it's so true. Yeah, if you don't have first presence, you're dead in the water. For a lot of these hunters, it's that case. Night Watcher, I don't know. I think he's B tier, honestly. Like B plus. I think he's B plus because like he's really good at mind gaming some people, but oh my god, I've seen some night watches that just don't know what they're doing, and I don't know if it's because like I was doing good at surviving or they were just not knowing what they're doing as a hunter, but like a lot of the times they'll just hop over pallets and not break them, and then like it's not any faster or slower than the survivors doing them themselves. So a lot of the times like hopping over that pallet doesn't do enough for him to catch up to those survivors, and he'll just get infinitely looped until he breaks them. So I feel like he does have certain situations in which he's really good in certain areas where he's really powerful, but I think that all in all, like there's a lot of annoying parts to him that make him difficult to play against certain comps. So like for example, if you're trying to hunt someone in ruins and they're just dropping all the pallets, Nightwatch is never going to catch anyone. You kind of have to rely on the blink to do anything. And although you do have a little bit of speed to work with, like I don't think it's, you might as well just play a different hunter with faster speed than you, like Joker, right? I think it's B tier. I've seen him played in IVL, and I know some people want to argue with me on him, but I just don't think that he's that amazing. I feel like there's just better hunters out there. Opera Singer, S tier. Craziest hunter ever unreleased. Oh my, you should have seen her. She's nutty. Nutty Bonutty. Yeah, her dash so fast. On a 0-second cooldown. She can go from one side of the map to the other. She pressures ciphers just by leaving the chair and teleporting back. Like, if you ever wanted cipher pressure, she's got it. She's got it in spades. Her chase, impossible to deal with. It's literally impossible. Even if you stun her out of it, she can just go right back into her mist form and then hit you after she comes out of it again. And it'll still be off cooldown. It only goes on cooldown if you mess up. On PC, it kind of messes up from time to time. Not gonna lie, it does. Or if you hop out and not into another shadow, it won't. It'll go on cooldown. It's very easy to avoid though. So I think that like Opera Singer, she used to have like no hit recoil. They did fix it a little bit now, so it's a little bit more bearable. It's so hard to get anything more than a tie against her because she's just so fast. It's just, she's fast and versatile. She's like if Smiley was fast. If Smiley was able to, she's faster than Smiley. The only downside is she doesn't have a double hit, but I don't think she needs it because she's just so fast. Like she can be so aggressive with her teleport back ability that if you get someone on the corner chair, she can literally just be all around the corner and then like she can make a perimeter of her Ash and then hit you twice before you even get to the chair because of how fast she can go. So I think that like just her aggressiveness is SS tier. I think she's really strong. She's probably one of the strongest, the if not the strongest hunter. Maybe like I don't know. She did get nerfed a few times recently. I don't think it's enough to stop her, but I still think she's S tier at the very least. I am speed. Indeed, she is speed. And then this guy, I don't think Fool's Gold is that good. Honestly, like maybe not even B tier, maybe C tier. He's just too weak. Yeah, like his ability is very, very easily avoided. It's very, very slow. And at first presence, like it's kind of nothing. He doesn't get his actual damage until like his pulsing ability. I don't even know if it's really good for Cypher pressure because you have to constantly throw your ability out. And if you're using the ability to camp, you're not necessarily using it to pressure a Cypher either. I think there was a time when no one knew what he did and he was really hard to deal with because people didn't expect his pulsations to work like that. But nowadays I think everyone kind of knows how he works, like stay away from the walls, try to bait out the pickaxe for a basic hit before you're coming in for a rescue. But yeah, all in all, like I don't think he just has so many problems. He's just too slow. Like if Opera Singer is too fast and then their next hunter who's Fool's Gold is just completely too slow, what's going on here? Like he's able to latch onto his to his pickaxe when he throws it out, but oftentimes you have to go directly to it. And if it goes too far, survivors will just double back. Yeah, his attacking recovery is average. His pallet breaking is average. Like everything about him so average. He doesn't excel at anything in particular. Even worse so, like he's just not really great at anything. I don't think. On top of that, like maybe camping, but he's not better than Feaster at it, in my opinion. That is it for my hunter tier list. As you can see, there's significantly less people in the S tier for hunters, but because there's significantly less people hunters in general. It's especially bottom heavy. I think like the amount of viable hunters is a lot less compared to the amount of viable survivors. I'm a hunter main, so it is what it is. You make do with what you got. I think that the meta will change after maybe when we start to watch code, we can figure out a couple of new things about the hunters. And this game does get updated quite frequently. So like in the 2 years that I've played, they've already did a big map change and stuff like that. I think that like the state of the game is pretty good for where we're at. Like it's decently balanced. And although there's always going to be imbalances depending on your tier, like hunters are a little bit stronger in the lower tiers and survivors are a little bit stronger in the upper tiers. It's still like you want there to be a good middle ground for those people in the middle to. Hey everyone, it's Hikaru here. If you like that video, make sure to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel for more. And you can also hit the bell for more notifications about future uploads. I love you all. See you later.